Okay, welcome everybody. This is a Live with Gabriel or Saturday Night Live, something like that. Tonight we're going to talk about chemtrails. I'm not going to talk about them as a speculation or kind of about chemtrails. There's been lots of documentaries on it. We're really going to talk about what we can do about it. That's the good news, is that we really are really making public how to go about protecting yourself from chemtrails. To me, that's the key to any of these discussions. You got a problem, but I don't like to bring it up unless there's a solution. So what's the problem? Well, the problem is that chemtrails are a misuse of sophisticated technology that are used to affect our physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual life, and to take away our sovereignty on all those levels. They're a form of the easy thing, biological warfare. They create a slow degradation of one's health. That's a problem, of course. They definitely affect our ability to propagate. So our sovereignty to propagate is affected. They, most importantly, besides being a form of biological warfare with viruses and Morgellons disease and funguses and bacteria, that they vary from time to time. The most important thing is they affect our minds. And this is the thing that people perhaps have the least understanding of. With the use of scalar wave technology with HAARP, as well as electromagnetic waves, like radio, TV waves, and communication, they actually affect the subtle workings of our minds and make us more susceptible to the constant distortions of reality that we are being exposed to. Therefore, we become a very susceptible population to the forces, and I'm going to say the dark side is an easy way, without naming names. The names don't matter, because this process has been going on for a while, only now they have more sophisticated technology. Do chemtrails exist? You can argue back and forth, but I want to point out that there was a law case against the legality of chemtrails in 1997, and the issue was not that they existed, the issue was it legal. And the courts decided it was legal to do chemtrails. That just tells you how bad the situation is. Because it was after 1997, they've been going since 1950, that they really began to multiply all over the world on a regular basis. Gabriel Coussens actually brought a bill, I believe it was 2009 or 2010, seeking to outlaw chemtrails. So, we're not arguing that they exist. Yes, they exist. Now, how you can tell is usually condensation is 1 or 2 minutes from the airplanes, and it's coming from the fuel exhaust. These are coming from other places in the airplane. They last up to 4 hours, and they create a broad band. So what's the big deal with a broad band? That's how HAARP uses these broad bands to reflect their radio waves into your life. I didn't say it right. They're not radio waves. Scalar waves into your life and affect your consciousness. That's what we're talking about. And so we are talking about the protection of our minds and the sovereignty of our minds and sovereignty of our spirits. Now, the Nazis were minor league in all this, but given time they would have been major league, but they're minor league, in that they use fluoride in the concentration camps to decrease spiritual willpower. Now, we have that in our water. Most of us, at least who are listening to this, probably don't use tap water. And probably use filtered water, so we're not as susceptible to that kind of program. But the chemtrails is the bigger problem. So what do we do about that? Because they are designed to affect our mind and our consciousness and to program and to dominate our minds. So this kind of technology is going on all over the place. This is massive. There's just a few places where it's not happening. China's one. They refuse to have them. And in the Cuba, Central America area, when they shot down one of the chemtrail planes, the Cubans did, then apparently they stopped doing chemtrails there. So they're not really doing them in Central America, in Cuba. So, but aside from that, it's happening all over. In violation of every level of our sovereignty, as I said, on all levels, including our reproductive rights. Also, they are a form of biological warfare. So what's in them? So let me explain. There's about 9 general components. They do vary from time to time. They vary the formula, but here are the basics. Aluminum oxide, which is one of the most deadly heavy metals, and acts again as a reflector for scalar wave technology that affects us. Barium oxide, pretty much the same thing, but it's not as poisonous, but it's using to affect our consciousness. We have bio-nanoparticles, which act again as scalar wave transmitters. Once the particles in us, they act as receptors for the scalar waves to affect our consciousness. And synthetic polymers, which do the same thing. So they got a group of things. Okay. Now, next thing they use ethylene dibromide. Ethylene dibromide is one of the, ranked as the 12th most deadly toxin. It displaces iodine from the system, therefore diminishes health and intelligence. But it is a poison on its own, and it's also in a lot of fire retardants. It's also in Mountain Dew, Gatorade, and a few other drinks. And it's also in as a fire retardant in a variety of places, including automobiles. There's only 2 countries in the world that do this, use bromide. They've outlawed it in every country because it's poisonous, and you can guess that the United States is one of them. But everybody's getting affected by ethylene dibromide. So that's a pretty important one. Then we have viruses, what I call the biological warfare. Viruses, bacteria, fungus, and Morgellons. I'm curious, how many people have heard about Morgellons? 1. Okay. 2. Okay. Not a whole lot of people. Morgellons is something that it appears that we don't have a cure for. It attacks your skin, hair, and nails. It literally melts your skin away and it ultimately kills you. There's 4 kinds of Morgellons. We don't even know what it's from, and it's hard to classify whether it's a bacteria, virus, or a fungus. And nobody quite understands it. There are lots of theories about it. So Morgellons is being dumped on us as well. Okay, they also have heavy metals, besides barium and aluminum that they put in from time to time. They also have a radioactive thorium, which is another piece. So I think when we add it up, it's about 9 different factors. And it's like, what to do? So why I'm actually having this discussion with you is figured out what to do. Now we can talk about it. Now we can get some protection from it, because the whole idea is to decrease your length of life gradually, depopulate the world population somewhat gradually. That's what the chemtrails are doing. But again, most important is really a weakened population from biological warfare, virus infections, URIs, colds, flus, that kind of thing, and really the scalar wave and radio wave mind control that is explicitly there. They have this technology. This is not like a fantasy type thing. Okay, so what to do? So I'm going to talk about the big six. First, silver. The Russian research on biological warfare shows that silver will knock out 98% of the biological warfare components. It doesn't knock out Morgellons, but it knocks out bacteria, virus, and fungi. So I have looked around. There's so many silvers out there. What's the best? I found one called Agla. And that's a very powerful Kabbalistic name as well, but it's called Agla. It is an oxygenated silver, which makes it way more powerful, but most important, it's at a particular frequency and concentration that's optimal. It's extremely concentrated, but it's colloidal at the same time, and I've isolated. We just got it in a few days ago. I'm pretty excited. I've been playing with it, and it's what I would recommend. Between 2 and 6 ounces a day would give you general protective health. And really, when we're looking at this kind of thing, it's like, this is real stuff that's going on. We just had something in Europe, right? A biological warfare attack on sprouts. Well, what's that about? Well, they use it. How do sprouts get E. coli? Well, that's somebody spraying with it. And now they can use it as an excuse to outlaw organic raw food for your safety. And what are they doing? Of course what they're doing is they're trying to take away all components of health. So Agla, very good. The second thing is aluminine. Now, aluminine is a very highly energized scalar wave iodine. And it will force the bromium out of the system. That's really important because it's the one healthy halogen. Chloride, fluoride, it forces all those out, but it's getting out the bromide. So it's very important to do that. Now I'm going to recommend, on the safe side, 15 drops 3 times a day. It lasts about 4 hours in your body. And that's what we've seen is reasonably effective. It also, in higher doses, is the only thing we know it shoots Morgellons. We have 3 cured cases of Morgellons. No, up until this statement, publicly, it's the only thing that has any effect on Morgellons. So if you're taking the iodine preventatively for the anti-bromide effect, you're protecting yourself against the chemtrails and the Morgellons, and that's actually really important. It also cleans the lymph, knocks out parasites. It's got many, many, many good qualities. Of course, supports thyroid function. So that's number 2. Number 3 is a combination of NCD and clonoptolite. Clonoptolite is something you take orally and it actually stays in your intestine, and it pulls out the heavy metals, the radioactive materials, it pulls out the pesticides, herbicides, and other things. It pulls out the barium and aluminum, and being in the gut, it protects it from getting into your system. NCD, but it doesn't go into the system. Clonoptolite doesn't go into the system. NCD will get into the blood and pull it out of the system in other ways. So I like to use 2 of those things. So those are important in the whole picture as we're kind of looking at it. Now, another part of this now is what I call the biophoton machine. And the biophoton machine, we've talked about before, but it's a machine that has a few million programs, including the programs against everything they put in chemtrails. And so it's like it's not homeopathic, but it creates a frequency that nullifies the effects of chemtrails. And what you do with that is you put out a coffee a filter, and that coffee filter gathers in all the chemtrails for the week. You put it in the biophoton machine, and it makes a remedy out of it in water. And, I mean, the biophoton machine does many things, but specifically for chemtrails, it's really pretty good. So that's a thing that we also offer here. We've offered for a few years, and it's something we actually do in our home, besides the others. It takes a little bit more work. So just to kind of review before we go further, we're talking about the AGO, the oxygenated silver. We're talking about the aluminine, and we're talking about the clinoptonite NCD. And pretty much, you have now pretty much covered all the aspects. The aluminine also helps inactivate the biological nanoparticles, but we still have a problem with those nanoparticles. And the truth is, humans are actually scalar wave devices too. So near the end of our little talk here, I'm going to lead you through a scalar wave meditation to kind of wipe out all these kind of negative scalar wave programs. Now, there's two other I'm going to call them secondary items. One is a particular form of salt, which we've also isolated, and it immediately gets us into the salt discussion. But I just want to say, practically speaking, the research on salt was done with common table salt, not the sophisticated salt. So what are these sophisticated salts that we're talking about? The one we're recommending is scalar activated. It comes from 4 different areas in the world that are very high vortex areas. It comes from under the ground, not from the oceans. I don't recommend getting any more salt from the oceans for many reasons. Plus, they're chemtrail, but they're radioactive. So these are safely underground. They come from Peru and Hawaii and Utah and Tibet, from high energy sources underneath the ground. So what's the point? The point is solves the crystal. And it reconnects you to the different high vortex earth frequencies. You don't have to go to Sedona, okay? But that's the concept, you see, that you're taking it into yourself from much higher vortexes than Sedona. And these crystalline energies then rebalance your body and reconnect, so to speak, your Wi-Fi system. In other words, your intercellular communication. So you have all these things disorganizing your communication, right? And now you're reconnecting your communication. So that's one thing. So that plays a role. The salts have some detox effect, but the biggest thing is it reestablishes a healthy earth frequency. Now, in this particular salt that we're talking about, it's got red clay from the Big Island, which is, again, another energetic thing in it. So it's got a variety of interesting things in it that further potentize it. And it also has volcanic ash. So we have energy from the center of the earth, from the heart of the living mother. It's also in the salt. So it's a very powerful, it's a frequency we're taking in that is really, really good for us. So how much you take of that? Maybe, a pinch, 4 times a day. Okay. Particularly here in the desert, you need a little bit more, but if it's really wet weather, you don't want to take as much. But by and large, that reestablishes your frequency that's being banged around and disorganized by the scalar wave, biological attack that we're all, suffering from. The idea is we don't want to suffer, so we do all these things. The second thing is divine colloidals, and that's minerals. It's a very unique thing. It's very, very, very concentrated colloidal, which is unique, and it's also scalar wave. And what I see about the divine colloidals is that it is really designed to pull out toxins in a pretty intense way. It's really also good for nausea when you're fasting, and it is used for acute drug detox as well. So there are lots of good things, but in this case, it's pulling out specifically the toxins. It's highly positively charged, negatively charged. It pulls out the toxins, which are usually positively charged. So those are things that kind of make a total picture that's not too complex. And that's part of what my work here is to empower you to protect yourself in the simplest way possible. Now, with that being said, I'm just going to lead us through a scalar wave of meditation. And so kind of close your eyes. And feel this kind of blue, silvery light coming through, coming down from the heavens, coming up from the earth. And this is a scalar wave, the cosmic scalar waves coming through. And they come through and meet at your thymus, really at your heart area, ancient heart. And you're gathering the energy within yourself, and now you're moving it down into the center, right through your bottom, and then coming up around, kind of like a donut shape, what we call a toroid. And then you're seeing lines come in a circle around you, so that you're a complete scalar field. And take a minute just to feel that. And now as this scalar wave energy comes down from the heavens, feel it contacting and empowering and activating your pineal gland. And see these scalar waves, positive scalar waves coming out of your pineal gland and moving in all 6 directions to nullify the subtle negative scalar waves that we've been programmed with. Nullify the nanoparticles, biological particles, and the synthetic polymers that are holding these negative scalar waves and filling those particles, synthetic particles, with the positive scalar wave light of high consciousness. So just take 15 seconds to scan your whole system. And now we'll add an Om to it, which is really good to do at the beginning. So we'll add an Om. See the silvery blue light completely, of the positive scalar wave, completely radiating from your system, leaving no room for the negative scalar waves. Great. So keep in mind that the scalar waves are very, very subtle. They actually have infinite frequency, and they have no length. That's what scalar wave means. So it's like very unique. And so our mind, working at the mind level, so our mind can affect it. That's the key thing that you really need to understand, is that we really can defend ourselves on every level from this chemtrail multiple level attack on our sovereignty, our physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual lives. So you may all be blessed with this understanding and share it with as many people as possible.